Hey there, I'm down here below my 2 caterpillar tunnels, and this area here, we're gonna be building a large beneficial hedgerow to increase diversity on the farm here. And I've talked about this before, that I like having those spaces to increase diversity. It really helps with the ecology of the farm and helps with pest control. And it's something that I'm lacking here for sure. Now, if you guys have been following along on the channel, you know I'm in the suburbs here. I'm on a 2-acre lot. About half of it's wooded, and it's not old woods. It's probably 50, 60, 70 years old since this area was cleared. So none of the trees are that old. The system isn't that developed, and so there isn't much diversity. We got the woods. We got a lot of green lawns around here with big houses, and then we have a little vegetable garden. So what I need to do is create a habitat for beneficial insects and pollinators. And at Raleigh City Farm, I had hedgerows put in between my beds, and here I don't really have the opportunity to do that. I don't have the space. So we're gonna try to surround it as much as possible. And the first place we're gonna do that is right out here. So the idea here is we're gonna put one large bed here. We're gonna do, I think, about 6 feet wide, and probably the width of the, or the length of these 2 tunnels here, and just try to fill in this space here between the tunnel and this oak tree off camera here, which you guys have probably seen in some of the other videos. But we're gonna try to do this on the cheap with materials that we either have or can get for free. And what we need to do today is kind of just get it prepped, and we got to kill all the grass and stuff here in the bed, and so we'll be laying down material and tarping. But before I even get started with this and measuring things out, I got to mow it as close as possible. Got this mowed down pretty low, and I don't know about you guys, but I just don't like mowing. I don't know what it is. Burning gasoline to cut grass just seems crazy to me. But you know, I don't have animals here anymore, so I can't have them do it. But I'm gonna try to eliminate as much of the grassy areas as possible, and you know, I try to minimize the amount of maintenance that I have to do. And that big grassy area where I used to move chickens around down below the tunnels, I got some plans for that too. I'll let you guys know when I get there to help with all this stuff as well. So over here, as I said, we're gonna put one long bed in here. I think we're gonna do 6 feet wide, and then the length will be the length of the tunnels here, and really have a lot of space to put in lots of different kinds of plants. And I'm still doing some research and talking to people that know a lot more than me about this stuff, about what things to put in there to attract beneficials and pollinators. So it'll be a mixture of flowers and grasses and perennials and annuals and lots of cool stuff. And I think it'll be interesting to see what works, what doesn't, what grows here. And this area doesn't get a ton of sun either, so we're gonna keep that in mind too. We're on the downside of the tunnels here, and this oak tree here does provide a little bit of shade, but overall it should be good. And I think we'll get some production in the summertime when we get tons of heat, so hopefully I won't have to water down here too much, and that will be the plan. So first thing we do is measure out where we're gonna put it, and then we're gonna start working on prepping that area. Got the corners all laid out, and ran some string around here just so we can see where the bed is gonna be, and we're gonna start working on this now. And we just made a basic rectangle here that lines up with the tunnels, and that should be great. And remember, I've talked about this in other videos, but little geometry lesson: if you're looking to get everything nice and square and get a rectangle, like if you're setting up a field block or beds, the opposite sides need to be the same length. So measure those and make sure that those are good, and then check the diagonals. And if the diagonals are the same length also, then you have a rectangle, so you just have to make adjustments until you get it right. So we're pretty close here, and there's a couple of things that's a little bit complicated with this, is that we have the drainage situation, which I've talked a lot about, and so the water's been running off the tunnels and then down this way and down over towards the creek. And so we have to make sure that we tell the water where to go. So what we're gonna do is, after or maybe at the same time, is while we're prepping up this area here, we're gonna put in a ditch in between this bed and the tunnel, so when the water comes downhill, it will go down that ditch and down that way. And then we'll just wood chip everything between the bed and the tunnel, so it's nice and tidy and we don't have weeds. So in terms of bed prep here, as I said, we're gonna do this for cheap, pretty much what we have. So what I'm first do is I'm just gonna Broadfork it, and then we have a bunch of material we're gonna layer in, different things like leaves, some mostly finished compost and some old compost I had, and we're gonna layer that all in, and then we'll cover it and let it sit for a while. Just quickly ran the Broadfork through this bed. I don't know if it's gonna do a ton, but figure try to loosen it a little bit. There's definitely spots where the soil's tighter than others, and Gene's over here working on that trench here to move the water. And it's funny because he's mainly shoveling compost, a little bit of clay underneath, but you know, my original vegetable beds were over here, so there's tons of good soil, and we're kind of just filling in some of the spots here and adding that organic matter into this bed and raise it up just a little bit. They said we're going to do this for like basically no inputs besides seeds and stuff that we need for plants, but for soil stuff we're gonna use what we have here. We got this ditch dug out here, and we took all the soil from the ditch and put it in the bed. And that did a couple things. So we broke up all the soil and kind of raked it out and kind of smoothed things out a little bit, which is great. Also added a bunch of organic matter to the soil, because you can hopefully see in the back here, there's some darker areas that had some compost from the original beds that were out here. And it also helped raise it up a little bit, just a little bit, which is always good in terms of drainage and stuff like that. And so this is now ready to go. We're gonna start layering materials. The first thing we're gonna do is put on some leaves and then some other stuff. And this ditch here is gonna take all the water off the tunnels and down the hill and direct the water down and out and make sure that it goes between the bed here and the tunnels and keep everything intact as best as possible. Remember, with drainage, you gotta make sure that you tell the water where to go, otherwise it will go where you don't want it to go. And then we'll just wood chip everything from this new bed to the tunnels. Keep everything tidy, keep the weeds under control, and keep the ground covered. So just using wood chips that we use everywhere else. I really like doing that. It keeps everything really tidy and less maintenance overall. So, put down a nice layer of leaves, and again, leaves are free, which is great. And I think I've really started to love using them whenever possible. There's a lot of benefits to them. And essentially what we're doing here is kind of mimicking nature as best as we can, because, you know, in nature, layers get put down, like in the forest, like the leaves fall and then other material break down and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, so that's what we're trying to mimic here. And it's one of those things like similar to building lasagna beds, where we put down that carbon layer, which for me was cardboard, and then we add the compost. Very quick way of building beds. What we do is just layer material here. And leaves are great. They break down, they give you a lot of carbon. And anytime you see a leaf pile, you know there's gonna be a ton of worms too. So that's gonna be great. It's a great way to build soil. And often you can collect leaves on your property. And if you can't, you can get leaves from municipalities as well, usually for free. And I think there's a lot less risk of getting, you know, chemicals and stuff in your leaves than if you're using grass clippings. A lot of people add crazy stuff to grass, so in the suburbs and the cities and stuff. So leaves are generally pretty safe, and they're just great. So we're gonna layer this down and then add some more stuff on top. But yeah, this should be awesome. It's gonna add a lot of organic material, as I said, and also it's gonna help smother out the grass and the other things growing here. So we can try to keep this a little bit more weed free. And then when we're done putting the plants and stuff in, we'll also put down wood chips as a mulch over top. All right, so with the theme of trying to do everything for free or as cheaply as possible here, we have some compost that's a mixture of a lot of different composts and leaves and stuff over the last couple years. I had some compost that have been sitting here from operating the farm in 2019, and it was a lot of microgreen flats and chicken bedding and, you know, all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of good stuff in here. It's somewhat broken down, or mostly broken down, mixing with some leaves. We're gonna layer at least a little bit of this out there. And now that we got the compost operation underway with Gene helping out here, we should have much better compost, and, you know, down the road later this year. But yeah, we're gonna take this out and layer that on. And then I have some old compost. I'll show you that. We're gonna put that on top of this layer. So I got another pile of compost here. This is an old pile of compost, commercial compost that I bought. This was from the farm from 2019 that never got used. It was sitting in my driveway all of 2020, and I moved it back here just to get it out of the way, to get the new stuff in. And I've been kind of wondering what to do with it. So I was gonna maybe divvy it up in the beds with bed flips and stuff like that, just to sort of infuse it in everything else we're doing here. But I think this is a great use for it. And this is not the compost leaf mold combo that I bought now. This is just straight commercial compost. So I think this will be great to layer in over there and get that infusion of nutrients and you know, fertilizer and organic matter. So yeah, this will be great. And also I'll get it out of here so we can clean up this area too. It's been sitting here for a while. We got that layer of homemade compost down, and then I just wet it down really good with a hose. And it's always good to wet down your layers as you're building something, because if you just build the whole pile and then try to add water, it doesn't seek, you know, get in there as well. So it's always good, especially like when you're building compost piles and stuff, as you're layering material in, just wet it down. So we got that wet, and now we're just laying over that old commercial compost here. We'll put a nice layer on top and then wet it down and cover it. Put down a layer of that old compost and watered it in really well, and this looks awesome. And I love these kinds of projects. We did something similar at Raleigh City Farm. We did the reverse lasagna, if you guys saw that video. Different, but also similar in the way we're kind of just using what we have on hand to try to build beds. And this is a great way to do it, and there is no exact way to do any of these things, but the main idea here is that things are not completely broken down, and they will break down over time. Now, could I plant vegetables in here right now? Absolutely not. But could you build something like this and plant vegetables in here next year? Sure. You get this broken down, maybe plant some cover crops and then tarp it, and then work from there and build the soil pretty inexpensively, rather than just buying a whole lot of commercial compost. But if you're trying to build, garden beds quickly, you really can't beat that lasagna method with a layer of carbon. So you guys know I use cardboard and then put down a bunch of compost, and you can grow in it that way. And this was part of the original plan here, and I probably mentioned this once or twice, but before you guys jump on me about building beds outside my tunnels, because you know, I'm only growing under tunnels, but that's for production. This is not for production. This is for, as I said, a host to host beneficial insects and pollinators, and that's what this bed's going to be for. And so, as I said, originally part of the plan, and I'm going to be doing a mixture of perennials and annuals in here, and I've been talking to a bunch of people that do similar stuff and have results to show for, like, you know, having good plants that they've been using and things that grow well. And one person I had a great conversation with was Jennie of Love and Fresh Flowers. If you don't know who she is, you should definitely check out her work. And I had her on Growers Live a couple weeks ago, and if you're not watching that show, you should. I do a live Q&A show with guests every other Tuesday night on the No Till Growers channel, where I interview growers and industry professionals, and it's amazing. And I had a great conversation with Jennie and talked about a lot of the stuff that she recommends, and I have some other people I've been talking to. So I'll get a good list together and I'll get some seeds in and start growing things, and it should be awesome. I also want to mention there's a lot of cool stuff going on with No-Till Growers right now. Jennie Love, as I mentioned, she has a No-Till Flowers podcast, and also Clara Coleman has a Winter Growers podcast, all under the No-Till Growers umbrella. So we're putting out some really cool stuff right now, and you should definitely check it out. And I just want to give a quick plug to that because there's a lot of cool nerdy stuff in there. So this is great. We're gonna get this covered up and let it break down and smother out all the grass that's under here. It's now in late March, and so hopefully the heat's rolling in now, and this should cook this pretty well. I don't know, we'll keep an eye on it. When we need to plant, we will, but this should be a great start for us. Got this covered up, and I would have used a silage tarp if I had one. I actually don't own a silage tarp, which is kind of funny considering how much I talk about them. But last year at Raleigh City Farm, they owned a few and we got to use them there, but I just personally don't own one. So I got an old piece of landscape fabric that was hanging around and another new piece I'm using for this, and just got it covered and put some weight on it. And the idea here is that we're gonna smother the ground, we're gonna occultate it, right, taking all the sunlight away. So any grass and weeds and stuff that grow up will get killed by all the material we put down, and also with the landscape fabric here. Also, because it's black, it'll hopefully help heat up the mixture that we have in there and try to break down a little bit quicker. So that's the idea here, and I'm really, really excited we got this going. I wanted to get this going as soon as we could, and we just found a little bit of window of time here today to get it done. So one more thing I want to talk about, and I don't like to get too talk about this stuff too much, but it's been 2 years since I started this YouTube channel, and that is crazy. I did not expect any of this to happen. I was just sharing information, and I won't talk about this too long, but I just want to say thank you to all you guys out there that have supported me, cheered me on, taken information and taken it and grew food and started farms, or got your farms better, or started conversations within your community and grew more food and all that kind of stuff. And I'm really, really grateful to all you guys and to all the sponsors this year that have helped keep the channel going, and I really appreciate it. And I did, as I said, I did not expect 2 years to still be doing this, or just to be, you know, at the size that I am. We're just about 160,000 subscribers, which is just absolutely mind-blowing. So thank you to all of you guys out there. I really appreciate it, and keep chugging along here, keep growing food, keep sharing my experiences, trying to educate you guys as much as I can and share what I'm doing here, and hopefully this stuff's helpful. So thanks so much for watching, and if you aren't already subscribed, please do that. We'll see you in the next one.